What follows is probably one of the most important things I have realized in a long time. And oddly enough, it didn't begin with philosophy books or theology textbooks. It began with ordinary life. Most people already know these realities deep down, but they don't always have words for them. Think of a man who works framing a house all day. He comes home exhausted, dirty, sore, sunburned, and tired. But if the framing went up right, if the walls are standing, if the rooms are finally taking shape, there is often a deep sense of satisfaction. Why? Not because money was earned, because something meaningful was accomplished. Chaos became order, effort became contribution, skill became reality. The same thing happens when somebody loses a wallet full of cash and you return it instead of keeping it. Maybe no one knows what you did. You may gain absolutely nothing materially. But inwardly, there is peace. Why? Because you participated correctly in the kind of world human beings are supposed to live in. Or think about stories of sacrifice. Men hear about firefighters entering collapsing buildings, soldiers protecting others under impossible odds, fathers sacrificing themselves for their children, or co-workers staying behind to help a struggling friend, and something deep reacts emotionally. Not because suffering itself is beautiful, but because human beings instinctively recognize the greatness of self-giving love, loyalty, courage, and sacrifice. Then there is the opposite side. A man drives drunk and kills innocent people. Years later in prison, he still breaks emotionally talking about what happened. Not because he dislikes punishment, but because he knows inwardly, I destroyed something precious. And strangely enough, people listening to the story often feel compassion for him, even while fully believing he deserves punishment. Why? Because we are witnessing conscience. We are witnessing a human being confronting moral reality honestly. And all these examples point towards something much bigger. Human beings seem to flourish when they participate rightly in truth, love, loyalty, honesty, sacrifice, meaningful work, and the good of others. And human beings seem to fragment internally when they move against those realities through betrayal, cruelty, deceit, selfishness, or destruction. That observation changes the way we think about life. Because maybe life is not biological survival. Maybe real life is rightly ordered participation in reality itself, rightly related to God, rightly related to neighbor, rightly related to truth, rightly related to oneself, rightly related to the world. And perhaps that is why Jesus defines eternal life relationally. This is eternal life, that they know you. Not endless existence, but communion, participation, relationship. This also changes the way we think about sin. Sin is not violation of arbitrary rules floating in space. It is movement away from rightly ordered existence. Lying destroys trust. Hatred destroys communion. Greed destroys loyalty. Betrayal destroys relationship. Violence creates fear and fragmentation. The commands of God begin looking less like random restrictions and more like descriptions of how human beings properly live together. Even lust starts looking different. Seeing beauty is not sin. Recognizing attractiveness is not sin. The deeper issue becomes, what is the will doing with that perception? Admiring your neighbor's house is not the same as scheming to take it. The moral rupture begins when a person turns toward manipulation, betrayal, exploitation, or wrongful possession. That is why Jesus seems less concerned with involuntary mental flashes and more concerned with the formation of the heart, the direction of the person, the kind of human being someone is becoming. And suddenly the Christian life begins looking less like obsessive self-monitoring and more like becoming rightly ordered toward love, truth, faithfulness, courage, humility, mercy, and reconciliation. Now here is where the academic world becomes interesting. Philosophers have a word for the kind of flourishing we've been describing, eudaimonia. It is an ancient Greek concept often associated with Aristotle. It means something close to human flourishing, living well, being fully and properly human. Modern psychology now distinguishes between hedonic well-being and eudaimonic well-being. Hedonic well-being is pleasure, comfort, entertainment, and positive feelings. Eudaimonic well-being is purpose, meaning, growth, integrity, relationship, contribution, and participation in worthwhile things. That explains why. Sacrifice can feel meaningful despite pain. Hard work can feel fulfilling despite exhaustion. Honesty can bring peace despite cost, and guilt can torment people even after punishment. Psychologists also study something called moral injury. This happens when a person commits, witnesses, or fails to prevent something that violates his deepest moral understanding. That is why the prison stories matter so much emotionally. The deepest wound is often not punishment itself, it is moral rupture. The realization, I violated something sacred. Sociologists study similar realities through concepts like social trust, cohesion, and communal flourishing. Healthy communities flourish when people broadly act with honesty, loyalty, fairness, restraint, and mutual regard. Theologically, this overlaps with Paul's statement that Gentiles sometimes do by nature the things contained in the law. In other words, human beings appear capable of recognizing aspects of moral reality through conscience, human nature, and lived participation in society, even apart from formal revelation. And that raises huge questions. What does it mean to know God? What is salvation? What role does conscience play? How does God judge persons with different knowledge and circumstances? Those are difficult questions, but one thing increasingly stands out. Christianity isn't about an assigned legal status. Its ultimate concern is the restoration and fulfillment of life itself, the healing of relationship, the restoration of truth, the reconciliation of persons, the completion of human flourishing under God. And this is why ordinary examples matter so much, because people already know these realities inwardly before they know the academic terminology. A construction worker understands meaningful contribution. A mother understands sacrifice. A soldier understands loyalty. A guilty man understands conscience. A child understands trust. A friend understands betrayal. A husband understands reconciliation. The academic disciplines are often just different attempts to describe realities human beings already experience. So the goal isn't to bury people under technical language. The goal is to help people recognize truths they already partially know, that human beings are not fulfilled merely by pleasure, survival, or self-interest. We come alive through meaningful participation in truth, love, loyalty, sacrifice, purpose, contribution, and communion with others and with God. And perhaps that is why the deepest peace often comes when we know, not that we were perfect, but that we participated correctly in something that was good. And maybe this finally brings us back to what Jesus meant by eternal life. Not endless existence after death, not a legal status floating above reality, not escaping punishment, but life itself restored to its proper order under the Father through the Son. A person rightly oriented toward God begins valuing what God values: truth, love, faithfulness, mercy, justice, sacrifice, reconciliation, the good of others. And because of that, the downstream effects naturally begin appearing in ordinary life. Relationships heal, trust grows, conscience clears, meaning deepens, purpose emerges. People become more whole instead of more fragmented, not perfectly, not instantly, but directionally. The Christian life, then, is not pretending to be religious while inwardly remaining disconnected from reality. It is the gradual restoration of rightly ordered participation in God, in truth, and in human relationship. That is why eternal life can begin now, because eternal life is not about where a person goes someday. It is about entering into communion with the very source of truth, goodness, meaning, love, and life itself. And perhaps that is why people experience glimpses of it already, in sacrifice, in loyalty, in honest work, in reconciliation, in protecting others, in meaningful contribution, in forgiveness, in conscience at peace, and in becoming the kind of person they know inwardly they were meant to be. Not because those things are the full reality themselves, but because they are reflections of the deeper life human beings were created to participate in with the Father and the Son.